Pink Slip, Episode 2, Church Folk Are the Worst Folk, Part 4. So, at some point, the pastor calls me. And I should not have been surprised because I do believe that this call was in reference to an email that I sent him. And I sent him an email because he was using the language of the church was his church and that what he says goes and, this kind of language, this very territorial language. So I had went and found scripture to, if you will, defend my position because from his position, it was all self. It was no biblical principle behind it. There was no scripture to support it. So I'm going to do what I know to do as somewhat of a researcher. I'm going to send him a letter because I wanted to make certain that I measured my words. I wanted to make sure that I was using biblical principle to support those measured words. So he calls me and he says, Sister Perez, he says, I just want to let you know that I have you on speakerphone. And he says he has Minister A and Reverend A on the phone. So he has two other people on this conference call. It's a reverend and it's a minister. The reverend is his brother. And I like the reverend. I had a lot of respect for the reverend. And the reverend, to me, out of everyone that was involved and out of everyone in the church, was the one who was the most genuine and authentic as far as being a leader and as far as really walking the walk with Christ. So I was like, oh, okay. I felt like, he can be somewhat of a mediator, okay? So he, informs me that he has these other two people on the call, and the call was on speaker. And he goes, Sister Perez, he says, do you have a problem with me? Out the gate. This is what he says to me. Now, he has this letter that I wrote. It probably was 3 pages. I said, I sure do. Because one, I'm talking about things in the letter mentions a number of things that's been going on in the church. And 2, now I have this information about who this lady is sitting in the second pew from the front. And he thought when he said, do you have a problem with me, that I was going to cower down. But I'm not that kind of person. When he said, do you have a problem with me? I responded, I sure do. And it got real quiet. Because now he doesn't know where to go, because he doesn't know if I'm going to outline the problem having to do with who this woman is in the church. Okay? So he doesn't ask me what the problem is. He says, well, whatever your problem is, I am the pastor of this church. This is my church. I am the leader, and you don't have to be here. And I said, it is this very thing is why I do not have respect for you. And he reiterates, then you don't have to be here. So I said, let me just be clear. I said, Reverend A, Minister A, am I to understand that you are sanctioning this pastor's position and what he's saying? They started tripping over their words. The minister said something to, Sister Perez, we want harmony, and we want to all try to, exemplify Christ in every situation. But you're not answering my question. And when Reverend A did not speak up against what was clearly out of order, I lost all respect for him. Because, again, out of all the people there, I felt that he would be the one that was solid. But, that was his brother. And two, what I learned and knew even before all of this, like years and years prior, people don't want to relinquish their titles in these churches. They're going to go along to get along as long as they can retain those titles. And, yeah, that's what that was about. So when I got off the phone, again, he said, then you don't have to be here. If you can't get with the program, then I said, then I guess I will not be a part of this church. Then he sent me a letter stating that I was no longer a member of the church, that I can surrender my keys because I was like a secretary, a van driver. I was the one opening the church, locking the church. I was overseeing other workers in the church, not getting paid. And not that I wanted to get paid, because I really feel like a lot of these jobs people get paid in the church. They shouldn't. If you're going to do it, just do it unto the Lord, because so many churches are struggling. But that's a whole different video. So he compiles this letter telling me that I was no longer a member there, and that I need to surrender any church documents, any church property that I had in my possession. So I packed it all up, and I mailed it priority mail where it had to be signed for, because I just knew I was never going to go back to that church. So I want to discuss the this whole thing of spiritual mothers. Spiritual mothers, sister so-and-so, these titles, these relationships that's supposed to have, to me, so very serious, very sacred meanings. And my mother was very supportive of me in whatever I did. My mom, I don't care what I was doing, what decision I was making. My mother was always very supportive of me. And it was not until this whole thing blew up that my mother shared with me her feelings as far as the way that I was moving within this space, within these relationships of the church. And when she had the conversation with me, I was so convicted. I was hurt, and I was so convicted, because in part, that conversation, in part, my mother communicated that she felt that I was putting some of these people before my own family. And that really hurt me so bad, that she was hurt by my conduct, my behavior, because that certainly was never my intention. And I'll be right back with more on that.